So essentially what the um, discriminant is going to tell us, again, if you need to access this, it's in the folder for today. And it looks like this. What the discriminant is going to tell us is the number of solutions that we're going to have based on a certain equation that we're given. Okay, so we'll start with an equation very similar to quadratic formula. We're going to have to make sure it's set equal to 0. We're going to find our A, B, and C values, but then we're going to use a different formula to help us determine the number of solutions. The formula is something that we've actually seen before. It's that piece that's inside my square root of the quadratic formula. It's that b squared minus 4ac. Okay. And we're going to use that formula and plug in those values. And depending on the number that we get as a solution, that's going to help us determine how many solutions that we have for that specific equation. So does it cross the x-axis twice if we were to look at a graph? Does it just touch it once if we were to look at a graph? Does it not interact with it at all? All right. When we are simplifying, should we get 2 real answers? Should we just get 1 real answer? Are we taking the square root of a negative number? Things like that. So it's all things to consider, and the discriminant helps us determine that just by being given an equation. So sometimes we'll have 2 solutions. When this is the case, our discriminant is the equation b squared minus 4ac. Okay. And like I said, we've seen that before. That's the piece of my equation that's inside the square root in my quadratic formula. If this number, whatever we get when we plug in our values to b squared minus 4ac, if it's greater than 0, this is a situation where we have 2 solutions. Okay. We have 2 real solutions. If that value is greater than 0, what kind of number is it? What are the numbers that we call that are all greater than 0? Positive, right? Don't overthink it. If it's a positive number. So if we get an answer that's positive, that means we have 2 solutions. If we plug in our values b squared minus 4ac and it equals 0, this is a situation where we have 1 solution. So 1 real solution. And then if we plug in values from that original equation into our discriminant and it is less than 0, we have 0 real solutions. So no solutions. And if we plug in a number and it's less than 0, what kind of number is that? Negative, right? So if it's positive, 2 real solutions. If it equals 0, 1 real solution. And if it's negative, 0 real solutions. And as we've already kind of noted verbally, the number of solutions depends on what is called the discriminant. So that's what we're learning about of the quadratic formula. And the discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. It's whatever the value is from that equation. Okay. Just to emphasize some points here, if b squared minus 4ac is positive, we have 2 solutions, negative, 0 solutions, 0, 1 solution. And our formula that you'll hear me say over and over again, something again that you need to commit to memory, but you should already know it from a quadratic formula, is just b squared minus 4ac. So we'll take all of our values, plug it into that, find a number, and then that number will help us determine the number of solutions. Okay. Any questions up until this point? Everybody's good? All right, so what does this look like? I'm going to do a couple of these kind of on my own so we can get an idea of the process. It's a lot less time consuming, strenuous comparative to the quadratic formula because obviously the formula is a lot different. The first thing we're going to do, just like quadratic formula, make sure our equations set equal to 0. All right. So every once in a while, we might have to move some things around. For a couple of these examples, it's already set up for us. So we can just go ahead to our next step, which is to make sure we label our A, B, and C values. Okay. So I have A equals, B equals, and C equals. A is the number in front of x squared, so that's 2. B is the number in front of x, which is -6. Remember, you include your signs. And then C is that constant term at the end there, which is -4. I'm going to take these numbers now and plug them just into b squared minus 4ac and then simplify. So when I do that, I'll have -6 squared minus 4 times 2 times -4. What's -6 squared going to give me? -36. -4 times 2 is -8. -8 times -4 is going to give me a +32. So be real careful with your sign changes, right? We talked about if there's an even amount of negatives, like we have 2 here, that's going to give you a positive number. Anything that's odd is going to give you a negative number. 36 plus 32 gives me 68. This value here is what's called my discriminant. So the value that you get when you plug it in is the discriminant. And now just using our notes from above or even this chart here, my number is a positive number. So when I see that, the number of solutions that I have are 2. So if I were to graph this equation, it would cross the x-axis twice. If I were to plug or try to find the solutions exactly from the quadratic formula, you'd find 2 solutions, right? That's what this is telling us. There's an infinite amount of answers you can get for the discriminant, but for the number of solutions, just something to think about as well, you're only going to get 2, 0, or 1. Okay, and this is how all of our problems are going to look, right? We're going to find the discriminant first, and then we're going to use that number to help us determine the number of solutions. Anybody have any questions about example 1 there? Okay. Example 2. Again, the first thing I need to make sure I have is the equation set equal to 0. Now I'm going to list my A, B, and C values. Somebody tell me, what's my value for A?
1,
What's my value for B?
3, and 5 is C.
Good. Take those and plug them into my discriminant formula. B squared is going to be 3 squared minus 4 times, how would I finish that line there?
Times 1 and 5.
Good. So 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5. Well, 3 squared gives me 9. -4 times 1 gives me -4. And -4 times 5 gives me what? Negative
20.
Good. 9 minus 20 gives me -11. So this number here is my discriminant. And then if my number is negative, again, based off of our notes from above or the chart there, how many real solutions do I have? 0.
Wait, hold on. This is Stackhouse. I have a question.
Yeah.
So let me make sure I have this right. So if it's a negative number, it has zero solution.
It has
If it's a
zero.
positive, it only has two.
Yes. If it's zero, excuse me. If it's positive, it has two. If it's negative, it has zero real solutions. And then if it's zero itself, so we'll see an example in a second where if we get zero for the discriminant, we have one solution.
Okay, that makes sense now.
Yep. It is a little bit to keep track of because a lot of times you think, well, if you have zero as your discriminant, you should have zero solutions. But make sure that you understand zero goes to one, negative goes to zero. All right. Something, a point to emphasize just so we don't get ourselves confused. So now if I were to look at maybe the graph of number 2, this is a situation where I would maybe just touch the x-axis. And if I was going to find the real solution for this using the quadratic formula, you'd only get one answer in the end. Okay. And we kind of talked about that at the end of class yesterday, where if we plugged in these values, we get the square root of 0, right? Because that's inside that's what my discriminant is. So the value would be 0 inside I'm sorry, for this one. For number 2, it's a negative number. You'd have 0 real solutions. So the graph wouldn't even interact with the x-axis at all. My apologies. I'm getting myself all confused now. So this wouldn't touch or cross the x-axis at all. Okay. Any questions about number 2? Number 3, what's the first thing I need to make sure I have? It's equal to 0, which I have. What are my A, B, and C values? 3, 6, and 3. I plug those in. I'll have 3 squared minus 4 times 3, or excuse me, 6 squared. Minus 4 times 3 times 3. What's 6 squared going to give me? What's 4 times 3 times 3 going to give me? And now I have 36 minus 36, which is 0. So my discriminant is 0. How many real solutions do I have? 1. Now, this is a situation, as you're kind of copying down here and getting caught up, this is a situation where we would have one solution. It would just touch the x-axis if I were to look at the graph. And then if I were to plug the values in now, as I was kind of explaining earlier, on accident, but for this one, b squared minus 4ac is inside my square root for the quadratic formula, right? So when you were to simplify that, you get the square root of 0, and you just have a number plus or minus 0 over another number. Well, that's just going to be, for example, if it was 4 plus or minus 0 over 2, that's just going to be 2. You're going to find one solution. All right. So just trying to conceptualize the parallels we can draw between how this might help us determine solutions when finding the quadratic formula, when graphing, so on and so forth. Okay. Any questions about number 3? Okay, what do we notice about number 4 here? It's not equal to 0. So what's the first thing I need to do to make sure it's equal to 0? Good, add 3 to both sides. Always need to make sure our equation's set equal to 0 to start. And now I have 4x squared plus 2x plus 3 equals 0. What are my A, B, and C values? 4, 2, and 3. All right, I'll plug those into my quadratic, or excuse me, my discriminant formula here. I have 4 squared, 2 squared, minus 4 times 4 times 3. The 2 squared is going to give me 4. 4 times 4 times 3 is going to give me what? 48. And 4 minus 48 is going to give me what? Negative 44. Take a second, make sure we have that all jotted down. If my discriminant's a negative number, how many solutions do I have? 0, right? Careful. Again, a situation where if we look at the graph, it does not cross or touch the x-axis. When we go through our quadratic formula, we'd have a negative number inside that square root. Okay, in which case it would be an imaginary number, right? We talked about that back in section 4.4. Okay, and that's why we have no real solutions. We'd actually have 2 imaginary solutions, but that's a conversation for a little bit later, either in this course or another course. Okay. Any questions up until this point about this process? Very similar, get the equation equal to 0, list your A, B, and C values, plug those in and find that number, right? The number itself is going to help us determine the number of solutions that we have. If it's positive, we have 2. If it's negative, we have 0. If it's 0 itself, we have 1. Okay? Everybody good up until this point? Okay. Here's what I want to do now. So there's some questions on the back of this sheet. All right. You two that are in here, so Emma and Alice, you guys are going to do number 5. Okay, just number 5. You already have it done, don't you? Good. Those of you that are at home, I'm going to put you in breakout groups. Okay. So group 1, you're going to do number 6. Okay. So actually, I'll put a 1 next to that. Breakout group 2, you're going to just do number 7. Breakout group 3, you're going to do number 8. Okay. So what's going to happen is you'll just take care of that question. I'll end the breakout rooms in like 5 minutes or so. Just kind of talk amongst yourselves. And then we'll have somebody from each group share out the process and their answer for each of those questions there. Okay. I'll split them up like relatively evenly. We have 24 people, so it'll be quite a few of you in that group. So hopefully you figure out somebody to help you share this out. We'll go over each of those, and then we'll talk a little bit about this process again, kind of towards the bottom, how it relates to graphs and quadratic equations as well, okay? A quadratic formula. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to open the breakout rooms. It's all right. So make sure you're joining those talk amongst yourselves about the process, and then have somebody share out. We'll join back in about 5 minutes, okay? You don't have to, no. So it's just you two working on number 5, so you can check your answers together. But other than that, you can stay here.
Mr. Stackhouse.
Yeah. What's up?
Mr. Stackhouse,
Yeah, what's up?
my dog just threw up. I'll be right back.
All right. Hopefully they're okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Just like don't. This doesn't bother them sharing like anything.
Trying to pay, I think it might have been Alvin, trying to pay attention and they're freaking out.
So funny. Let's check these rooms here. All right, everybody should be back by now. So either Emma or Alice, you guys have number 5. So first off, first thing we need to make sure is that we have the equation set equal to 0, okay? Which we have. And then what are my A, B, and C values for number 5? 3, -4, and -4, right? When I plug those values into b squared minus 4ac, what did you find the value for the discriminant to be? So what was the final answer? 64, good. And then 64 is a positive number, so how many solutions do you have? 2, good job. So b squared would be the -4 squared minus 4 times 3 times -4. Well, that's 16. -4 times 3 is -12 times -4 is 48. That's what gives you the 64. And then it's a positive number, so you get 2 solutions from that. Okay. Anybody have any questions about number 5? All right. Somebody from that first breakout room who was doing number 6, so 3x squared plus 6x plus 3. Somebody walk me through, is my equation set equal to 0?
Okay, I got this.
Got it?
Yep. So first, list out the A, B, and C, which is 3, 6, 3.
3, 6, and 3. I'll plug those into b squared minus 4ac. And then what did you get for your final discriminant? So I'll always like kind of ask for the answer and then we'll show the work afterwards. So what was the discriminant for this one?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So when I plugged them in, I got 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 3.
Okay.
And then I pretty much just like, I multiplied them and I got 36 minus 36, which equals 0.
Good. So that's your discriminant, right? And then how many solutions do you have if your discriminant 0?
1.
1. Good. So we plug in 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 3. Well, that's 36 minus 36. My discriminant 0. That tells me that I have 1 solution. Okay. Good stuff. Any questions about that one? All right. Somebody from the second breakout group, talk to me about number 7. My equation's equal to 0, right? So what are my A, B, and C values? Somebody from the second breakout group. Somebody take one for the team. In the second breakout room. All right, I'll bail you out. So A is 3, B is 5, C is 3. B squared minus 4AC. You have 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times 3. 5 squared is 25. 4 times 3 times 3 is, or excuse me, negative 4 times 3 times 3 is negative 36. So my answer is negative 9 as my discriminant. And if my answer is negative, how many real solutions do I have? 0. Good. All right, I'm not doing it twice though. So somebody from breakout room 3.
I'll do
No,
it.
I'm sorry, not negative 9, negative 11. My apologies. I was thinking it was 26 minus 35. So negative 11, sorry. And then either way, you'd still get 0 for your number of solutions. Any questions about number 7? All right. Number 8. So somebody from that third breakout room.
I'll go.
All right. What's the first thing I need to do in number 8?
Add 2 to both sides.
Good, right? Because I need to have the equation equal to 0. So now I have 5x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. What are my A, B, and C values?
5, negative 4, and 2.
5, negative 4, and 2. And when you plug that in, what did you get for your final answer for the discriminant?
Negative 24.
Nice. And again, if it's a negative number, how many real solutions do you have?
0.
Good. When you were to plug those values in, how you get negative 24, it's negative 4 squared minus 4 times 5 times 2. That's 16. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Negative 20 times 2 is negative 40. So that's how I get the negative 24. And then again, if it's a negative number, I have 0 real solutions. All right. Any questions about anything from 5, 6, 7, or 8? All right. Let's just talk real briefly again. We're not going to do the quadratic formula for these, but just to kind of connect the two ideas. So remember, our quadratic formula, that b squared minus 4ac is in the square root, right? So there's a point in these, I'm kind of going to skip through some steps, but if you were to work these problems out and actually go through the quadratic formula, there's a point where you would get to x equals negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 1 over 20. Well, now what we're able to do when we're going through the quadratic formula, after we simplify everything under our square root, we see that 1 is obviously a positive number. So how many real solutions should I have here? 2, right? If you were to simplify that, you get negative 9 plus or minus 1 over 20. So you have negative 9 plus 1 over 20, negative 9 minus 1 over 20. And that's going to give you 2 real number solutions, right? That's where your graph crosses the x-axis. On the flip side, say like in number 12, there's a point in time where you would get down to the value, to this step, negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 23 all over 4. Well, b squared minus 4ac and my square root there is what kind of number? Negative. And if it's a negative number, how many real solutions do I have? 0, right? In fact, you take an I out, it's an imaginary number, you have imaginary solutions. Okay, so just something to consider as you're going through now when you're doing a quadratic formula question, you should be able to determine now how many solutions you should have in the end, right? If you have, a positive number under your square root and you only end up with one answer, then it's probably a good chance that you did something wrong, right? So it's another way to help you kind of check and recognize that you're on track with the other questions. All right. Any questions at all about discriminant or anything that we did today? Okay. So tonight for homework, you are on page 270 doing numbers 21 through 31 odd. This is in the folder for tonight. All right. You're just doing parts A and B and you're just doing the odds. So like I said, 21 through 31 odd. And then you're doing parts A and B. So you're finding the value for the discriminant given the equation. And then you're determining the number of roots. Roots and solutions are the same thing. They mean the same thing. You see that in some of them, they're all equal to 0. Some of them you might have to move some things around, like we saw today. So just be aware of your steps, list your A, B, and C, plug it into that equation, B squared minus 4AC, and then work from there, okay? When you come into class tomorrow, we'll go over that. Obviously, it's a virtual Wednesday, so our day's a little bit shorter. We'll go over that, and then we're gonna do some review of concepts from section 4.4 in preparation for the quiz on Friday. So talking about imaginary numbers, square root method, and then how to use certain operations with complex numbers. Sound good? Any questions about the assignment for tonight or our plan tomorrow? All right, you got a couple minutes here. With that being said, you are good to go. Make sure you get your homework assignment done, and I'll see you all tomorrow. All right, enjoy the rest of your day.